So I actually wanted to preface that with the fact that you are very well known within the boxing community for your scouting knowledge, and also for the knowledge of the amateur boxing. People across the world, especially in the United States and the UK, use you as their consultant for the references in terms of, certain prospects. Can you talk to me about how you actually, like, how does your process of scouting works, and um, what are you working on right now, and how do you handle the situation usually on a day-to-day basis when you need to do your research?
Well, I guess I'll kind of bring it back to how I guess it started in that regard. Basically, running up to the 2016 Olympics, that was when I kind of got heavily into that regard because I was gambling on the fights and I did very well on that. And back then I was just thinking like, you know, this is what I want to do. And I said to myself that in 2020 I'd be going to the Olympics for scouting. Obviously, now
Mm-hmm.
it's 2021, but I, still pretty confident that'll happen. But yeah, basically, you look at the amateurs, it's the same concept as, like other sports leagues like NFL, MLB, soccer, NHL. They all have scouts. Boxing doesn't really have it in that regard. I think, there's very few people that kind of specialize in that aspect, of boxing. And I kind of wanted to carve out my own niche. And, that's what I'm in the process of doing. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think you always want to, in any aspect of whatever your work is, I think you want to separate yourself from the pack and distinguish yourself and have a specific skill set that other people don't have. So over the years, that's what I've been developing, basically, just accumulating knowledge. People might think sitting around and watching fights is just, for entertainment or something. But no,
Mm-hmm.
I, I do it to study. I do it to improve my own skills. I do it to improve my ability to evaluate what I'm seeing and, apply that in a practical manner. So like I'll go back and watch fights of like current champions or older champions from the past, and I'll watch fights from when they're like 14, 15, 16 years old, and I'll, it gives me context because then I can use that and say, well, this is what a future champion looks like at 15 years old. It allows me to contextualize what I'm seeing in the present when I look at present, teenage prospects, I guess. And I always go back and evaluate what I'm seeing. That's the main thing, is evaluation, because it's one thing to know like what's going on in the amateurs and the pro scene, but the ability to evaluate it
Mm-hmm.
is completely different thing. And that's how you get to the next level of that stuff, because the reality is, you know, uh, it's few and far between fighters that actually pan out. If you look at, who gets signed, who the top amateurs were, it's only a smaller percentage of them that actually pan out. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to, I have to be able to pinpoint who's in that smaller percentage and, you know, identify the top talent who can make it in the pros. So basically, in like 2017, I think I had people start approaching me about this kind of stuff, and then it went from there. And I was working on some big things this year in terms of joining bigger companies
Right.
or whatever. And then the coronavirus hit, kind of stalled everything.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm kind of in a holding pattern. But basically, my goals are obviously that kind of scouting thing, and then my other goal is just to build boxing in Canada, because I know the potential that's here. I know the talent that's here. We just need to build that infrastructure that allows the talent to develop properly, and that's what I want to do, and I think I have the ability to do it. It's just a matter of aligning with the right people
Hmm.
and bringing, the right entities into Canada, basically. And that's what, I've been in the process of doing. Obviously, we'll see how it plays out after, this whole pandemic
Right.
is over.
So let's go back to the scouting thing. You've mentioned that you'd like to occupy a special niche in terms of scouting. What do you think the current scouts are not doing? Something that you actually get frustrated about, because you have other scouts that are helping out the promoters and helping out the managers. But like, what exactly is, the main thing that distinguishes you from other scouts? Where do you see the main problem with the rest of the scouting community is?
Well, I don't think there's that many scouts in general. I mean, obviously, any manager who goes and signs a fighter from the amateurs, for a certain promoter is basically a scout. But in terms of like people who actually uh, specialize in this, I don't think it's that many. And honestly, like I'm not big up in myself, but
Hmm.
based on like the probably thousands and thousands of hours that I've put into this, I think I know this field as well as anybody, and
Hmm.
I think all the knowledge I've accumulated in this regard is second to none.
Hmm.
And because I know how much time I put into this, and I know how good my memory is in these type of aspects. I know that every single day I'm constantly learning, constantly sharpening
Right.
uh, my skills. So I think in that regard, um, but one thing I think people place too much emphasis on like how well someone did in the amateurs. Obviously, the cream of the crop are usually top amateurs, but I think people just look at someone's amateur resume and think, oh, this guy be a
Hmm.
good pro, but it's a lot deeper than that. You actually have to, you know, study in depth in terms of the fights, and then you got to figure out what they're doing outside of the fights.
Hmm.
It's not as simple as, oh, you know, he's a good amateur, be a good pro. It's really not that simple, and I think time after time you see a lot of these top amateur prospects flame out in the pros. They become busts, and they don't really pan out to
Hmm.
what people were thinking. So I think that's that's part of it. I think another thing is like unrealistic expectations. It's like I said, only a small percentage actually make it. So
Hmm.
I think a lot of people come into it expecting that every fighter they sign is going to make it, or you know sign like 10 of them and like 8 of them are going to make it.
Right.
It's a lot less than that generally, and this is from like the people at top rank. If you can hit like 30%, that's in terms of the fighters you took from the amateurs, if 30% of them can become world champions, then
Hmm.
that's a pretty good percentage. And in addition to that, like as a manager, you don't really make your money just becoming world champion. You make your money as far as the return on the investment that you put into the fighter. You
Hmm.
make your money back on the defensives and then unifications
Hmm.
and big fights. Not just winning the title.
Right. So
Like
going to the top, getting to the top is one thing. Staying at the top,
yeah,
this is where the money is.
yeah, definitely. And like it's a business.
Hmm.
Like any other type of thing. You put a certain amount of investment in, whether that's time or money or both.
Hmm.
And the reason people do this, I mean, I don't even do it for money. I would do it anyway, but obviously,
I wouldn't say
making
that
a
out
living.
loud. You'll draw attention of a lot of freeloaders.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to have the passion for it, and
Of course. Yeah.
that's the main thing. Um, but obviously, making a living is important, so that's one thing. But you know, I think the passion is the most important thing. And if you commit to something and you go all in on it and you work hard, then you should reap the benefits anyway, right?